Hailed as the hero, the whistleblower who defied the censorship, defied the Chinese state, took a big personal risk and warned people about this virus before authorities were willing to, and they were still covering it up. This was back in late December. He was a doctor. He's actually not a respiratory specialist. He's an eye specialist, but he worked in a Wuhan hospital, and he warned a wider group in a private WeChat conversation, a wider group of medical alumni, hey, there are cases of SARS. He then clarified it's not SARS, but it's very similar to the severe acute respiratory syndrome. For that, he was reprimanded by local authorities down there. They made him sign documents admitting that he was spreading false rumours. And he then went back to work and actually contracted coronavirus himself because it was so widespread already in Wuhan. By this stage, because of what he had done, the local authorities had no choice but to fess up and for the first time admit that, oh yeah, we do actually have a mystery pneumonia. There's only 27 cases of it though. We don't think it's contagious between people, so everybody stay calm. He caught it. He was in hospital for weeks. Of course, everything changed. People here started hailing him as a hero. Even state media started criticising those local authorities who detained him briefly or reprimanded him. And overnight, the news that he died as a result of the virus has just sent absolute shockwaves through this country.
And there was some confusion in the reporting of his death by Chinese media.
Yvonne, this has created such huge amounts of anger. I cannot stress enough how angry people are in China about what happened last night. So it was bad enough that this guy was punished for blowing the whistle and spreading the word in the first place. When he dies last night, it's reported by local state media, by doctors in Wuhan, his colleagues. They're sending out the message to foreign journalists, to domestic journalists, that his heart stopped beating at 9:30 p.m. The Chinese state media starts reporting this. About an hour and a half later, these reports come out from the hospital claiming that, oh no, he's still critically hanging to life, and we're doing all we can to revive him. People were incredulous. Doctors were sending messages around saying, no, this isn't right. His heart stopped more than an hour and a half ago. This just can't be right. Finally, at about 3 in the morning, the Chinese state, through its media, confirmed, oh yes, he is actually, he did pass away. Many people here, Yvonne, they don't have proof because it's very hard to verify, but they believe that as the waves of grief and anger spread out on social media last night, that the propaganda officials here may have panicked and may have tried to cool the temperature down by delaying this news and then finally releasing it in the middle of the night. You can never be sure, but this morning everyone is talking about it.
And amid this outbreak, it does appear that Beijing has tightened social media censorship.
Yeah, that's right. So, first of all, when this confusion about Dr. Lee's death happened last night, the hashtags on Weibo, the Twitter-like social media platform, started focusing on him. There was even a hashtag saying, "We want free speech." People were really furious. And so, within hours, it was all tightening up. Suddenly, this went from the top trending hashtag or talking point on Weibo. Suddenly it was out of the top 10. Everybody knows what was happening. The authorities suddenly clamped down. And this is a really critical moment for China's government in the information campaign about this outbreak. People are sad. People are furious. It's not lost on anyone here that the reason those local authorities in the first place punished this guy is because the central government encourages local officials across the country to do that, to make sure that people are silenced if they don't put out information through official channels. And so the circumstances around the announcement of his death infuriated so many people here, and today there's quite strict censorship. It's not as though his death is being censored, but the discussion around it is facing censorship.
Bill, thank you.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, a Chinese mother has been granted an exemption to Australia's coronavirus travel ban so she can visit her dying son before his life support is switched off. Xiao Li was declared brain dead in Royal Melbourne Hospital earlier this week after his car collided with a truck in late January. Acting Immigration Minister Alan Tudge has confirmed the 22-year-old's grieving mother will be given a tourist visa. Another 6 Australians have been infected by the potentially deadly coronavirus, including 5 on board a stranded cruise ship in Japan. Tonight, a second Qantas evacuation flight from the outbreak source in China is flying Australians to be quarantined at an unused mining camp near Darwin. The Prime Minister has warned that it could be the last government-sanctioned evacuation from Wuhan. Matt Garrick reports.
From a ghost town to a hive of activity, the government is rushing to turn this workers' camp east of Darwin into the quarantine site for Australians being repatriated from Wuhan.
My advice is that is progressing extremely well.
Constructed to house thousands of workers who built the multi-billion-dollar gas project in 2018, the site's been abandoned for months. Soon, around 280 Australians will call it home for at least a fortnight.
The evacuees will be housed in very comfortable and very humane conditions.
They'll fly direct into Darwin on the second government-chartered Qantas flight, with a secure transfer to the facility by bus. With Christmas Island filling up, authorities have had to find another place to house evacuees from Wuhan. This workers' camp is the first site on the mainland to be used for the purpose. For those already in isolation on Christmas Island, the wait goes on.
For us, just to be on Australian soil is a relief, you know? Because as long as we're away from where the problem is.
Any other Australians still in China are being urged to get out on the few commercial flights still operating.
I strongly suggest you avail yourself of those, because the government cannot guarantee that similar types of assisted departure arrangements would be able to be put in place into the future, either into mainland China or again into Wuhan.
Some already have.
Not easy, a crazy trip, because I applied a tourist visa to bring him in, so I got some troubles for him to on board because of the travel ban.
Overnight, Queensland authorities confirmed the state's 5th case of coronavirus, a 37-year-old woman from the same tour group as the other Queensland cases. Matt Garrick, ABC News.
Well, 5 of the 6 new confirmed infections of the strain happened on board a cruise ship docked in Yokohama, which is under lockdown. ABC correspondent Jake Sturmer is there and has managed to speak to one of the Australians who have been infected.
She's remarkably well given the circumstances. This is the first time we've heard from an infected passenger on board, and I spoke to her this afternoon as she was waiting to be transported to hospital. She has now left and is on her way. This woman is in her 60s. She got the notice this morning and believes that she contracted the virus while on a bus trip with the original Hong Kong patient infected with the virus who brought it on board. She says so far her symptoms are fairly mild.
I feel fine. A bit stressed, as you could imagine, and quite anxious. In myself, I feel fine. Pretty much the same as you would if you were fighting a low-grade infection, I guess. But nothing major, no temperatures, no headaches, nothing really.
Now, this woman was one of 41 new cases confirmed today, but her real concern is for her husband. He's in his 70s and has been left behind. So far, he has tested negative for the virus, but he requires assistance, so being alone is difficult. He is one of hundreds of Australians on board waiting out this 2-week quarantine period. 61 passengers and crew in total are confirmed to have the virus. For the rest, they found out late this afternoon that they would be released from quarantine on February the 19th. That is, unless there are any other unforeseen developments.
President Donald Trump has announced a prominent al-Qaeda leader has been killed in Yemen by US forces. Qasim al-Rimi was the founder of al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, which was considered to be one of the terrorist group's most dangerous branches. Al-Rimi claimed responsibility for last year's shooting at a US Navy base, which killed 3 American sailors. The death toll from a pair of avalanches in eastern Turkey has climbed to 41, with dozens more injured. Search teams aided by sniffer dogs have been scanning the avalanche field for bodies. The first avalanche killed 5 people. Then the 300 rescue workers who were called to respond were hit by a second avalanche. There's a new twist in the sports grants scandal, with revelations of another